Anita, how's your mental health?
Questionable at all times. You know this.
Yeah, how's the mental health of your children?
Also a little bit tricky. Can I tell you my experience in trying to find therapists for myself and my kids, Mel?
Yes, please.
Okay, this is how it goes. You ask around your friends and your family for a referral for somebody who's nearby. You finally find somebody who sounds like they might work for your family. You give them a call and you find out that A, they're not accepting new patients, or B, they have a huge wait list. So you start over again and you ask people if they know anybody who would be a good therapist and a good fit. Finally, you find one, you go and you meet with them and you figure out that you don't actually like them that much. But it's been so much work to find somebody who you can go to in your area that you're kind of stuck with them. Well, do you have any ideas for how to get around this?
I do, because guess what? I've actually had some therapists that I have found on my own, which involves what you're saying. Sometimes I remember one time I was like 3 hours in the bathtub on my phone looking through websites. I was such a prune at the end. But I have also had the experience with working with BetterHelp. And it was like, I don't want to say too good to be true, but because it is true, but it's like amazing because I was matched with my therapist within 24 hours.
And you didn't have to go through all of that other ridiculous process of trying to find somebody. And here's the cool thing too, is if that person didn't work out for you, you can just switch and say, and it's not like you're committing to another years long search for somebody who you're going to jive with.
It's true. And I lucked out, or maybe just BetterHelp is really good at matching people together because I never had to change my therapist. I loved her. Perfect fit for me. And I know that some of our friends have used BetterHelp and they've had to change therapists, and boom, same day, you can change.
Easy peasy.
You can ghost your therapist. Get a new one.
I love this idea. BetterHelp is one of our sponsors. If you use our promo code trybetterhelp.com/WWDN, you get 10% off your first month. And we totally recommend it.
Yes. Get some therapy. That's trybetterhelp.com/WWDN. Anita,
We had our non-lame Valentine's bash.
we had so much fun.
I had fun. I hope everybody who came had fun.
It was such a fun platform. So thanks to those who showed up, and you are getting this podcast episode on Valentine's Day. So this day could be coming with some mixed emotions or no emotions or all of them.
Do you know how I'm celebrating Valentine's Day?
Running?
I'm waiting for the internet person to come fix my internet anytime between 7:45 a.m. and 9 p.m.
So you're not leaving your house.
I don't know. I just feel like that's the perfect way to celebrate Valentine's Day, don't you?
I think so. It's like goals. So I had some intense things this week. Do you want to hear about it?
I told you you need an exorcism in your house because you guys can't catch a break.
You guys, okay. Here's what's going on. First of all, the week started with me not being able to put my pants on the right way. Everything was inside out. 4 of 7 days this week, I had inside out and backwards clothes. Not my jeans, don't worry. Like, I could get jeans right. But it was like, what is happening? So just it was a wonky week. But I am sorry to say we've had another tragedy in our family. You guys might remember that in December, our poodle, Phil, was killed. And then the month after that, my dad died. And now my dad's other dog, who was not sick at all, his name is Kevin. He was Phil's dad. He died on Thursday. Kind of hard times. You know what it's like to lose a pet, but it's especially hard on my sister because both of those dogs were originally hers. So she's really kind of grieving hardcore. And I'm just over here watching it happen.
With your pants on backwards?
Yeah, and I can't put clothes on the right way, so I'm still in shock. But
Mel's reverted to like a 4-year-old where she's got her shirt on inside out and backwards, and she's wearing a swimming suit on top of everything.
do you guys remember those jeans from the 90s, Gerbeau jeans, and they had the weird tag across the front part where the zipper is? Well, my leggings yesterday that I put on, they looked like Gerbeaus. And not because they were fancy or anything, but it's because my leggings were on backwards and inside out and the tag was on the front. But you guys, oh my gosh, I have a crazy story. This has never happened to me ever in my life. Not with Scott, not with anybody else that I know. And it has finally happened. So some of you guys have had experiences where you'll get a text from your person who's died's phone, or a message will come through or something like that from their phone. And I just want everyone to know that my dad has come through. And before he died, you know, we would talk about stuff super bluntly. And I was like, Dad, when you die, like, you got to figure out how to manipulate technology, because please, like, send us something. He's like, okay, haha, let's keep playing tennis. Well, last night I was downstairs playing Nintendo. My mom was upstairs in her room. My dad's phone was on the kitchen table, locked, put away, protected from all cats walking on the counter. It wouldn't have even been possible for them to access it. And my mom got a phone call from my dad's phone.
Spooky.
I was so excited. I started jumping up and down. I was like, you did it, Dad! And I think my mom was just like, ah! She did not answer, for those who are wondering, but I told her next time she should answer. See what happens.
Maybe he's got a message for her.
Okay, but I have a question, because I'm really excited about it. Would you be excited, or would you just be freaked out? And would it, like, alarm you?
I might be alarmed. I don't know. I think it might just make me feel a lot of, like, trauma feelings, to be honest. So,
yeah,
I'm not sure. I think it could go either way. But I just want lottery numbers. That's what I want to be haunted with. Useful information.
Okay, Dad. That's your next goal. See what you can do.
So I was noticing, you know, we talk about people's belongings and what we do with them after they've died. And I've been really slow in dealing with Jason's stuff, and I do it kind of piecemeal and, like, get rid of some shoes here, some pants there. And there was a drive for shoes going on at the local gym. And so I took some of Jason's shoes out of the closet. And as I was doing that, I was noticing my body's response to that. I was getting shaky and I was breathing differently. And I was like, that's so weird that even after, you know, it's been 3 years, anytime I come up upon doing something with any of his belongings, I still get that kind of physiological, like, response to that. And it wasn't like a big response, but I did notice. I was like, oh, my heart is beating fast. I'm getting kind of sweaty. Like, I'm feeling feelings, because every time you do that, I think it confronts you that, yeah, they don't need this stuff anymore, and that you're going to get rid of it. So I don't know if I would have those same feelings if I got a phone call, kind of that, like, ugh.
Well, I've changed my answer now that I'm listening to you, because I'm actually, like, starting to think more clearly.
Mm-hmm.
I think I would actually be traumatized.
Yeah.
Because one time I accidentally hit something and I called Scott and I thought he was calling me, and it sent me into a thing. So,
yeah.
Sorry, Mom. My mom might be traumatized. I don't know. But it was also so cool.
I have my phone. I had to finally change it, but my phone, the emergency contact number was Jason's, and I pocket dial all the time my emergency contact when I'm out running or biking. And so it would ring and then it would go to his voicemail. And every single time I had to, like, stop and be like, oh, you know, for a few minutes, just because it freaked me out so much. Because, like, to hear his voice on the voicemail and to be like, you're not here anymore, you're dead. And that was also a really hard thing to choose who was going to be my new person that I was going to butt dial.
Isn't it? Is it me?
No, it's not.
Oh, yeah, because I don't answer the phone.
Yeah. And I butt dial my friend all the time. And then she's like, I never know if I should send out a search party for you, because that's exactly what would happen in an emergency, is you wouldn't, you know, respond.
So you should set me as the contact then.
Because then you won't come anyway.
Yeah.
Okay. Perfect.
We also had our Zoom hangs this weekend. Thanks again to Autumn Barker for doing that every month. I heard that it went really well. I did not attend because of said problems with my life.
I was able to go to the first meeting, and it's always so fun to see all of you guys. So thank you so much for being a part of our community and helping to support the other widows. And hopefully you're finding some support also in all of these meetings. And come hang out with us in the Widow Wives Club if you're not a member already. Just make sure that you provide us with the information that we ask for. And if you're having any trouble providing the proof, just email us. We can almost always find a way for you to show us that you belong.
Yes, we really, really would like you in there, especially because it is so helpful to have a supportive community. So please reach out if you're having issues, and we would love to have you in there, even though it's for a stupid reason. And that's the Widow Wives Club on Facebook.
If you guys want to keep the podcast going because you value the podcast, come check out the Patreon that we have set up. It's patreon.com/WWDN. It's a monthly recurring donation, and it can be stopped at any time if you need to, but we appreciate all the support that you guys have given us through Patreon and hope you'll continue.
Yes, one of the perks you get if you join our Patreon at the Widow Bestie level and up is you get a shout out in episode, and we are going to do that right now. Okay, we're going to start with our secret dead husband who does not want to be named, and she says, na 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 widows. Yes.
That was the Batman who wore the blue costume and was not so shapely.
Guys, that was Adam West, the best Batman ever.
Holy widows, Batman!
Did you know that Burt Ward has a dog food company? It's called Gentle Giants, and it has the most obnoxious fonts all over the bag, but it's actually good dog food.
Okay, we're going to go on to Constance Dahlbeck,
David Kelly,
Dawn Satterwhite,
Gail Paxton,
Ivan, the Misner TM,
Kat the Cat,
Krista Waite,
Sam Finlayson,
Amy Hartman Martell,
Amy Neal,
Amy Sapp,
Ashley Hahn, hits your episode,
Brittany Pedro,
Chris Steffen,
Christina Shiflett,
Danielle Catterberg,
Not a Debbie Downer,
Dennis Brazo,
Heidi Hayward,
Jenny the Taylor,
Jennifer Beal,
Jennifer Brown,
Jennifer E. Hassel,
not Jennifer, but Jenny Wang,
Kathy Marie,
Kelly Ford,
who has incredible lip reading skills.
Yes, Kirsten Spooky Scary Stromberg Clausen,
Laura Bradbury,
Lauren Old,
Leslie Webb,
our Auntie Marie Hoffman, who was my emotional support animal texting this weekend. Thanks, Marie.
Mary Catherine Anderson,
Missy Schubert,
who banged her head open, Rachel Barbosa, whoop whoop,
Sarah Morris,
Sylvia Shore,
the sad, sad widow that gets phone calls, Taylor Snyder,
The Winehouse, Karen Cornejo,
Vicky Spit,
Anna Tracy,
Christina Scambato,
Christine Anderson,
Cindy Raynaud,
Mindy Holmgren,
Dawn Barber,
Debbie Fells,
Deborah Westwood,
Diana Becker,
Emily Toledo,
Aaron Posick,
Gabe Lozano,
Gia Benoit,
Gina Haas,
Ian Sini,
Ileana Bell,
Jackie,
Jane,
Jenny Barrow,
Jocelyn Milo,
Julie Stevenson,
Karina Jacobo,
Katie Radcliffe,
Carol Scarra,
Laura Keeley,
Lindsay Kanopka,
Lori Farrington,
Marjorie Lewis,
Mary McGowan,
Megan Montague,
Melissa Bowers,
Peter Rukavina,
Becky Zyba,
Sarah Kennedy,
Stacy Saywert,
Sunshine the Haven,
Tammy Terravest,
Tara Wallace,
Valerie Packer,
and Snoop Dogg Wendy.
Are you Martha?
I want to be Martha Stewart. You guys, I'm like so entertained by Martha Stewart and Snoop Dogg's business partnership. Their ads are so funny.
Thank you to everybody who supports us on the Patreon. We really appreciate your support, and we love every one of you.
If you would like to join our Patreon, please go to patreon.com/WWDN. And if you don't want to do that, but want to help the podcast,
go to buymeacoffee.com/widowwedonoww, and we will take that money and we will put it to good use by buying tacos.
And we actually buy tacos with it.
Yes.
Sometimes they are called rescue tacos.
And if you don't want to do any of those things, will you just give us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify? It helps us to be more visible to others when they need us.
Yes, so please consider those things. And remember, again, to join the Widow Wives Club on Facebook if you have not already. It's a supportive community, and it is so helpful. You can even just lurk. Mm-hmm. I know that sounds creepy, but like all you lurkers know what I mean. Like non-creepy lurkers.
You can be a non-creepy lurker.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right. Shall we move on to our episode then, Mel?
We shall.
Let's do it. I'm Anita.
I'm Mel.
We are two young widows, and we are only trying to figure out widow.
Now. Widow. This episode is brought to you by the Misner Family Foundation in memory of Elisabeth Misner.
Sometimes we assume that unless we had a huge life insurance payout, we don't really need to know anything about investments or even finances. But guess what? A little knowledge of finances is critical for all of us. Maybe your partner was in charge of that stuff, and now you find yourself making all the decisions. Maybe you're mad about that. maybe I am. Nicole from the He's Gone But the Money's Not podcast is here to help. She tackles financial literacy by telling the stories of women and widows and finance experts and shares the lessons they've learned as certified financial planners. Whether you know a lot and feel confident in your financial decisions or feel unsure about all of that stuff, there is more to learn. Listen and subscribe to the He's Gone But the Money's Not podcast on all podcast platforms. This ad was paid for by Rockhouse Financial, an SEC-registered investment advisor. Here we are, together at last. It's taken us a few minutes to get our act together. I blame Mel and not myself for the stories I had to tell before we started.
I blame the technology gods. That's what I think. But we have a hero among us, our next guest, who has survived us already.
The one, the only, Ashley Hahn. Or, if you want to do it correctly, Ashley Hahn. Is that right, Ashley? I mean, now we don't even know.
I feel like either way. I can be fancy and be Ashley Hahn.
She can't even say it. Ashley, where are you coming to us from?
I am in Minnesota right now.
Oh.
Yes. I'm living in Shakopee from Prior Lake, little towns, like southern Minnesota.
Is that where you are from originally?
Yep. Born and raised.
I've never been to Minnesota, but I hear it's cold, so I don't want to come.
It can be. The summers are nice, spring and fall are awesome, but winter is, and I'm a mail carrier, so being outside all the time in like the negative 25, 30 degrees isn't so much fun. It wouldn't be bad if I didn't have an outside job.
Negative 25? No, you must quit this job.
What do you wear? Like, what kinds of layers do you have? Are they special, like, thermal clothes?
I actually have a heated vest, and then I know how to layer. I usually wear like 3 or 4 pairs of pants. And then my snow pants because I'm such a baby.
Ashley, hold up your hands. I need to see your hands. She has all 10 fingers. No frostbite.
How long is a shift usually?
I'm usually outside for like 5-6 hours. So not too terrible, but.
Question, because this all is relevant, I guess. Have you ever gotten bitten by a dog? Like, you know, that like cliche vision, a picture of a mail carrier and a dog?
I've come close. But now that I have my own route, I've made friends with all of the dogs on my route. So they all know me. Whenever the subs do my route, then they like try to come up to the truck and be all happy, but then the subs get kind of scared, so they don't get out for them. But
so right before this, I was telling them about my mail potentially being stolen, and I didn't even realize that Ashley would be like, not on my watch.
That's a real thing. It happens quite a bit.
But just to be clear, she was not stealing my mail. She was trying to sell me windows, everybody.
Tell us a scandalous story from being a mail carrier. I want to know.
Well, I did have a customer accuse me of stealing a package that they ordered it from China, and they tried to say that they had a Craftsman toolbox ordered from China, and you can't get that from China. And it was like a 1-ounce package. And they wrote me a letter and told me, like, left it in the mailbox and said to either buy them a new one or go back to my own house and fetch it.
Okay. Well, okay, I have a question. Because it's illegal to open people's mail, doesn't that make it so it could be easy for people to just send illegal goods back and forth? Like drugs?
We have had people try to send marijuana and stuff through there, but you can smell that.
So then are you allowed to, like, put the kibosh on it?
Mm-hmm. And we call them the postal inspectors.
Ooh, not the postal inspector. That's like, that is the big guns.
Okay.
So you're saying we need to send non-smelly drugs to one another if we're going to do it via the postal service?
Pretty much.
Well, now, welcome. Everybody that's joined us has really wanted to listen to everything about the postal service. So thank you for joining. We're excited to learn more. Ashley, we met you a while back on a Zoom, and we think that you're pretty awesome, and we would love for people to hear your story. So will you please tell us why you know us, and then we'll get into your story.
Well, I literally looked up, it was probably like 3 months after I lost Dave that I looked up, just typed in widow into the podcast, into Spotify, and found you guys. And then I listen to you every week. And actually my sister, I keep telling them, because they're like, oh, I mean, they're really cool, but I'm not a widow. And I'm like, it's okay, it'll still help. You can hear my thoughts.
Yeah, it'll help them understand widows.
Yeah, so there has been like specific episodes that I'm like, okay, listen to this one. This one will help you guys.
Oh, good. Has it? And has it helped?
Yeah, it has actually.
I'm super curious.
And a couple of my friends have too. Like they're oh, I listened to that episode that you want, and they will actually like refer back to it and be like, no, I know, like I know that not to say this, or I know that you're going through this or whatever. So it has actually helped not only me, but like my grief civilians around me too. Yeah.
Your people.
Yep.
That's amazing.
That makes us so happy, because we know that because of the name of the podcast that it is pretty widow specific, but we also hope that it helps other people to understand us too. So that's so great. I'm glad that it's been helping in other ways too. Yay!
Yes, absolutely.
Ashley, do you want to tell us about this Dave character?
Sure. So he is actually my sister's best friend. They were friends since he was like 18 and 19 because I was 10. He was 9 years older than me. So I've known him for forever. He was always like a part of our family. He always called my mom his mom, and we just kind of adopted him into our family. He got married, and I actually watched his daughter once a week in like my early 20s. And he came to my 27th birthday and told me that like him and his wife were done. And I was, because I asked about her, and we hadn't talked for like 3 years. And so it was kind of like a random, like, hey, does Dave, because he also worked with my other sister too. I have 3 sisters. And so he worked with the other one. So I was like, hey, do you just want to let Dave know that this party's happening? Because I haven't seen him in so long. And that just happened to be the time that they were like, nope, we're done. And then we just kind of didn't stop talking, and went, and everything kind of started from there. And it's funny because there was a TikTok that I saw that was this girl saying, my husband said that he wouldn't have dated me in high school. And I asked him why, and it was a picture of him in high school and then a picture of her in 5th grade.
So are you telling me, Ashley, that Dave married the nanny? You were the nanny for a hot second?
Yep, sure did. He actually wanted to get a t-shirt that said married the nanny, and then gave me a t-shirt that said nanny. I refused to wear it though.
That's so funny.
That is funny. Dave and I are on the same wavelength.
Yeah, that's, my sister told that to my dad, and my dad kind of laughed and went, good for him.
So what did Dave do for work?
So he worked at a place called Cameron's Coffee. He built shelves for their coffee in like the grocery stores and stuff. So actually every time I go to a grocery store now, it's still the shelves that he built. Yeah, he did that, and up until the last about year, and then he quit and went to deliver pizzas because he wanted something that was just very mindless.
Did he come home smelling like pizzas? And was that good news or bad news? Did you have to like bite his arm every once in a while because he smelled so good? Or was it like, ugh?
It wasn't too often that he'd come home smelling like pizzas. I mean, he would, but I maybe I just got used to it. I would get more angry if I asked him to bring me something home and he didn't.
That's what I was gonna ask. Like, he better have brought you free pizza.
Yeah.
So you guys had already been very good family friends / kind of family, because you pseudo adopted him, and he split up from his person that he had a kid with, right? That's what you're saying.
Yep.
And then you guys hit it off in the romantic way. How long were you together?
So we were together in total for 3 years married and all of that. And now I am actually good friends with his ex-wife, which is so funny to me because Dave and I always joked, like, it was always like we're never going to get there. We're never, it's always going to be that distance. He's always going to think that we were together or something was happening before they got divorced or anything. And like, there's always going to be that there. Well, when he went into the hospital and I actually had to call her, and because of his daughter, they had to get a hold of her somehow. And his daughter was 9. I finally talked to her. She came up to the hospital and it was just kind of like whatever happened in the past. We're putting it in the past. We need to move forward. There's a bigger picture we need to focus on right now. And ever since then, we've been just fine, and I can actually consider her my friend.
That's amazing. That is amazing. So you mentioned Dave was in the hospital. What is that about?
So before we got married on October 5th of 2019. He was complaining about back problems. Like, he just said that his back hurt really bad. He was kind of like starting to turn yellow. And so I looked at him and I'm like, you got to go in. Like, this is something that you need to probably get looked at. And he refused because he didn't want to be in the hospital and not be able to go to the wedding. And so he did finally go, like, a couple days before we got married. And I was getting irritated with him because, like, he just complained about it. And I'm like, I'm not a doctor. I don't know what to tell you. And so he finally went in. Well, the hospital didn't really do any tests or anything like that. They gave him a painkiller and sent him on his way. So the day of the wedding, he was just in a lot of pain and just very, like, his belly was even a little extended, and like, it was just, he did not look great. So the photographer and our DJ was like our lifesaver. So the photographer would set up our pictures and put everybody where they should be, and then put a chair where Dave was going to be. And then once we were all ready to take the picture, then he'd go, okay, come on, Dave. And Dave would come in and stand there and smile and then go back and sit down. And then we'd pose another picture, and it was like the same thing.
So what you're saying is that you were doomed from the start.
Yes. Yep. Pretty much.
That's unfair.
Yeah. Like, even when I did, like, because we did first look pictures, and like the photographer was helping him get like his tie on, was helping him do, like, because he could barely get dressed. He could barely. And I was also like, come on, dude. Like, it's our wedding. Can you please just suck it up for like just a couple hours to get through pictures? Like, come on. Because I didn't think it was like that serious. So then the DJ kind of, for our first dance, he had said, he's like, okay, if you look at me, then I know that I need to fade the music down because he can't stand for that much longer. I'm like, okay. So he looked at me and he just goes, I can't, I have to. So we got through about half the song and turned to the DJ, and then he just kind of slowly turned it down. And when it was the time for the garter, like, I had to help him up because he knelt down to get the garter, and I had to help him up. But during the ceremony, he looked at me and he's like, I'm going to pass out. And I don't know if it's because I'm nervous or if it's because I'm sick.
Oh my gosh.
Oh.
Yeah. So it was just and then the DJ also said, he's like, we're going to set you up in the back of the room so that people know where you are. So he just kind of sat there, and I'd come and sit with him every so often. And so that way everybody who was leaving, and he was so thankful because he's like, every single person there came and said goodbye. Every single person came and said congratulations. And that was the best part. And it was awesome. And when we left, and he just was out.
You can choose not to answer this, but this doesn't sound like it made for a very exciting wedding night.
No.
And honeymoon.
I actually sent him back to our hotel room, and then I went to the bar with my sisters for like an hour.
Oh my gosh.
It's like an extended bachelorette party, except for you're no longer a bachelorette.
Right. So we got to the bar and everybody's like, hey, where's the groom? And I'm like, he's at the hotel room. So the next morning, he finally said, he's like, I can't move. Like, I have to go in. I'm like, okay. So I brought him in and found out that he was in liver failure. It was kind of like a combination of things. And it's hard for me because, like, I'm not ashamed of the fact that he drank, but the hardest, like, I'm still in contact with like his sister and his dad and his brother and aunts and stuff. And I like to focus on who he was, not what he did. Because even through everything, like it was, he wasn't mean. He wasn't, like it was helping him work through his back pain and, like, because he really legitimately did have back pain. It wasn't just from his liver failure. So the next morning we went in and when I went in with him, I still had my hair done from the night before. Like I actually had to call my family and was like, all I have at the hotel room right now is my wedding dress. Can you please bring me my clothes? The other place.
Just wear that thing.
You
Come
should have worn the
on.
wedding. Can you imagine how quickly they would have gotten in to see you if you showed up in your wedding dress?
Oh, they would have felt so bad. It would have been the
like,
best.
Get that lady out of the waiting room.
Put his tux back on and be like, help us now.
He did actually, because he couldn't actually get out of his clothes. So he was still wearing like his like pants that he was wearing at the wedding and his like undershirt.
Did he have his cummerbund on still? Hot pink?
He didn't have that.
Dang it.
Yeah, so he ended up in the hospital for 8 days. So that's how we spent our honeymoon and they transferred him to another hospital, and they actually told us that we got the honeymoon suite because it was a corner room with 2 windows.
Oh.
The sad thing was that honeymoon cost more than you could have like sailed around the world for the same price as that honeymoon.
Oh, 100%. Because the other hard part is that he did not have insurance.
No.
Because he was going to get onto my insurance and they would not backdate it. The only time they backdate is if I were to have a baby, not. So I had to wait for our marriage license to send that into them, and then he could be put on my insurance. So for like the first like month and a half, he had no insurance. So that's been super fun to deal with.
Okay, so you find out 22 seconds into your marriage that he's in liver failure, and then what do you do?
So and honestly, everybody seemed very optimistic. Like it was definitely so they actually he went through a perientesis when they got there. So they drained a bunch of fluid from his stomach. And when the first time they did that, they drained 5 liters of fluid from his stomach. And so I was like, well, that's why you were uncomfortable and couldn't breathe. And so he would go in and do that every week to week and a half. They would drain about anywhere from like 4 to 6 liters of fluid. He kept losing weight, but like not like it was hard to explain because like his arms got super skinny, his face lost a lot of weight, but they were still had to drain that fluid from his stomach. And so we did that, and then he ended up getting he had really bad stomach pain, and he kept telling them that. Well, they were just saying that because it felt better once they drained the fluid. So that's what they thought that it was. He ended up having a stomach ulcer on top of it. And so on February 1st, he went in by ambulance. I came home and he was on the bed and could not move. Like he literally was like, this is where I'm at. Like, I can't, I don't know what to tell you. I'm not going anywhere. So I called an ambulance. They came and got him, brought him in, and they did another perientesis where they drained 8 liters of fluid out from his stomach. Then it ended up, his blood pressure dropped a lot. And so he stayed overnight. And then I was supposed to be leaving with my sisters to go to Vegas on February 2nd. So on the 1st, when I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, he goes, nope, still go. It's not that big of a deal. Like, I'm still going to be here. Don't worry about it. And at like 4:00 in the morning, I got a call and they brought him to the U of M and had to have surgery. So that first they thought that the hospital had punctured something when they were draining fluid. And it turns out that they found the stomach ulcer, and they drained. So once they went in to repair the stomach ulcer, they drained another 8 liters of fluid. So he was in the ICU at the U of M. They were talking, they kept asking, how many stairs do you have at your house so that we know for physical therapy? And at this point, we had to be out of our apartment on March 15th. So it was me kind of going back and forth and trying to pack stuff up. And then my sister would come and pack stuff up for us. And then we had our cat there. So I had to go back and forth to like help with feed the cat and get everything else so sorted with that. But I spent most of my days at the hospital with him so that I knew what was going on. When I first went in to see him at the U of M, he was sedated and he had a respirator. And it was just, there was no talking to him. There was nothing. So it was a really big shock going in. When I had told them I'm supposed to be leaving on a plane tonight to go to Vegas. And she's like, okay, well, I'll have the doctor come in and talk to you. And at that point he had said, he's fine, but just in case we need decisions to be made, you should probably stick kind of close. So we ended up not going to Vegas. And my sisters actually brought me to a wild game because it was like within 20 minutes of the hospital. So we could get there if we needed to. And and my work was super awesome and was just kind of like whenever you need to go, just let us know and we'll figure it out. And it was just a lot going on. And it was just such a big blur that it's hard to remember everything. It's hard to once I think back on stuff, I'm like, oh, wow, that did happen. Like I did do that while he was in the hospital or, it's crazy. We moved into my parents' house on March 15th. We had care conferences every week with our doctor, with his doctors, all of his doctors. And then he ended up going into kidney failure as well. He developed a heart flutter and his stomach ended up building walls to because he had an infection in his stomach. And so they couldn't drain fluid anymore because they couldn't find a big enough pocket to drain enough fluid to make a difference. And so when we moved, it was throw everything into storage of his, grab my essentials and bring it to the house and just kind of leave that sit for a while and figure out what's going on with him, because then at this point they had said he had about a 50-50 shot of making it out of the hospital. When we went in, it was no, he's going home. What do we need to do for physical therapy for where you're going to be staying? We did that. And trying to think, after that, it was just kind of like a touch and go. And then that's when COVID became a huge thing and everything shut down.
Because of course you need that as well.
Mm-hmm.
And when did you get married? It was 2019 of October.
Yep.
So, and now at this point we are in March of 2020. You have led an action-packed 5 months in this time.
Yeah. So then at that point I was the only one allowed up at the hospital. So it was like the 2 weeks before, I was the only one. So I would go up there and spend my nights. And then there was one night, and they switched rooms all the time because there was an ICU delirium, which I did not know was a thing. And I realized it when he looked at me and said, I left a bag at the airport. And I was like, oh, okay. And I go, well, we will figure that out. And he grabbed my arm and goes, no, time is of the essence.
So now he's a jewel thief.
Yeah. And so I went, okay, well, I'll call Anna, who's my sister and his best friend. I said, and she'll go take care of it. And he goes, no, this is not a job for Anna. So, and now my sister actually uses that. So her husband will go, hey, will you do the dishes? And she'll go, this is not a job for Anna.
Thank you, Dave.
Yeah. So it was, I told the nurses about it and they're like, yeah, that happened.
They're like, yeah, we've seen that before.
And he actually ended up punching one of the nurses because he thought that they were trying to eat him.
Oh, that would be upsetting.
And it was like every time I left the room that something would happen. That was that all of a sudden I'd come back and he'd be restrained. And I'm like, what the hell?
Once, you guys, I had a patient, he took a turtle hostage from the aquarium and chucked it at one of the nurses. It's like my favorite story. The turtle was okay,
Okay,
by the
that
way.
was I needed
But
to know that.
no, he was like, anyway, sorry, continue. Very sick husband, delirious in the hospital, and he's going to die because we know the end of this story, because otherwise you wouldn't be here with us.
Fair point. Yeah, so we finally, it was the week before he died that I had decided I was so tired, and the room that he had moved to didn't have a bed. It only had a chair. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going on day like 4 of not showering. So I'm going to go home for the night. And that night was when they cut off all visitors, or like it was the next morning. So I felt so freaking guilty that I had left because I could have had that one more night. Oh man, and we had a care conference the next day. And so when the care coordinator called me and she told me that nobody was allowed up, and I'm like, if I was there, would I have been able to stay? And she said, no, that they kicked everybody out and like just protocol and all this. And I was so angry. I went for a drive and just had to like be away from everybody. So I ended up on the care conference on a phone call, like a conference call. And that's when they had talked about, and before that, they did bring in the palliative care, and I had no idea what palliative care was. And I actually have a friend of mine who I took care of his son when I was a preschool teacher. His wife died of liver failure about 8 years ago. And so when he found out about my story through like Caring Bridge, that's when he reached out and was like, hey, if you have any questions, like, let me know. And so I had asked him, I said, hey, when they told you that Jen was going to die, how did they do that? And that's when he told me how they dealt with him. And she was in the same hospital. She was in the same everything. This was just 8 years before. So that's when I was kind of like, okay, so this is happening. This is going to happen. So on the care conference, when they said that, we're talking end of life, we're talking, there's no coming back from this. His kidneys are not coming back. He's on 24-hour dialysis. We can't get him off the ventilator. And he would have his good days and his bad days, which really messed with my head. Because like, I almost wish that it just would have been like all bad, because it wouldn't have had those couple days where I'm like, wow, he barely had to use the ventilator at all today. And they went and talked to him, and they got me into the hospital for that conversation and just told him, this is what dying looks like. This is it. And he told them that he wanted a second opinion. So they brought in his liver doctor, actually, and she talked to him and just kind of told him what was going on. And so he said he was okay. He had a feeding tube. He had the ventilator. He had tubes everywhere. And so they said, he came to terms with this, and they said, do you want us to take out the feeding tube? And he laughed and said, no, I'm not dying hungry. They told us that they would get, it's called, what was it? Passionate care. And
compassionate.
Yeah. And he made a list of everybody he wanted to see, and they one by one brought the chaplain at the hospital, brought people up to the hospital, and everybody got about 5 to 10 minutes with him. We were going to remove the vent on that Saturday, and it ended up where his mom was going to come into town because she's out of state. So we were waiting until Monday to remove the vent. And that Saturday, he took out his own feeding tube because he was sick of it. And that was like, he'd done that like 3 times. They had to keep putting it back in because he just kept taking it out. So he took it out, and they're like, well, we're not putting it back in now. So, and that's where like he got like a lot of his like medications and stuff for him not being like loopy, like kind of delirious in that. And so he was getting, by like the hour, getting more and more just kind of like, where am I type of thing. And he was always messing with the nurses anyway. So they'd ask him like what year it was, and he'd be like 1942. And they'd like, so then they'd get like worried, and I'm like, he's joking. So when he did get like delirious of that, and when he did say the wrong year, they had to like look at me, and I'm like, no, now he's not joking. Like, yeah. So they brought everybody up there one by one, and then I I was supposed to go home, and the girl that was supposed to be escorting me out of the hospital went home because that was on that Saturday. And so they're like, well, she went home. So they were like, we're just gonna pretend you're not here. Like, okay. So I actually got to stay that whole weekend with them. And he ended up bringing, he wanted Squirt, that was his favorite soda. And that he wanted like all these like different kinds of teas. But he couldn't actually drink it because he ended up having a trach at this point. And so he couldn't actually drink it. So he dipped those like sponge swab things in there and then suck on it. And he told the doctor, because they're like, no, you can't actually drink it. And he goes, why? I'm dying. Like, why does it matter? And they go, okay, do you want to die from choking? And then he just glared at them and grabbed the sponge and started using it.
If it means choking on Squirt, I don't care.
So if he did actually, because they were saying that with like the trach and everything that's been going on, like it was just he had to like relearn how to swallow and stuff. So that's why. And so once he figured out that he couldn't swallow, he started like every time somebody would go up there, and they knew that he couldn't drink anything. So when my sister Amy went up, and he's like, he grabbed it and started drinking it. And she's like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. Do I stop him? I don't want to stop him. So yeah, so then his mom ended up not being able to come. And so that Monday, we removed the vent. He got to talk to his family on Zoom. And so it was me and a Zoom call full of people, and asked them if they wanted to stay on the Zoom call for it, or if, like, do I just set up a camera and he's dying? Like
a death cam.
What kind of a Zoom call is that? You're like watching somebody die. And that's so common with the COVID situation, and it's horrifying. Like, what did you do?
Well, they all wanted to stay on the Zoom call. So I kind of like propped it up, and every so often I'd like, because he would kind of come in and out. And when they first took off the vent, they took it off too fast because he was on such a high setting for it. And that's still like, I actually ended up doing the EMDR because of this specific situation, and I could never do it again. I actually really hated it. So that when they took it off, he like, and like started like grabbing at stuff and grabbing at me and like telling me I couldn't breathe. And I'm like, I don't know what to do. So they put it back on, and then they slowly turned it down, and then he was fine. But that like one situation was like
he was fine, Ashley. I don't think he was fine.
In the search.
You mean he was not in distress?
Yeah, so they would, and one of the other things too was he would I would tell people to do a shimmy for him, because he couldn't like lift his legs too often because he was just so swollen. So they removed the vent at like 2:15, and he died by 4:20. So It was very quick. It was very like, I'm done now. And the nurse started like getting my stuff together, because like I just literally started just wandering around like I don't know, like I'm lost. And so they're like, take your time, and I'm like, I don't want to be in here anymore. Like, I'm done.
Yeah, like what are you supposed to do? What did you do?
You give yourself a hug.
Yeah, and so luckily my mom and two of my sisters and my niece were in the parking garage, waiting for me. And so they were on the Zoom call in the parking garage. And once the Zoom call ended, then they came up and were waiting right outside the hospital. So it was like, honestly, probably within 15-20 minutes that I had come down. And my sister was like, I can't believe you're down here so soon. And I'm like, well, he doesn't need me. Like, what am I supposed to do?
Plus, I mean, I don't know. It might be nice to be with people who are alive and love you.
Right.
Right? As opposed to the nurses who, I mean, you might have gotten to know some of them, but they're not your family. They don't know you really.
Well, and the nurses that he had, we got so close with, I mean, because he was in there so that he died on March 30th. So he was in the ICU from February 1st till March 30th.
Oh, wow.
So I got to know all of the staff there, and they were so incredibly amazing. And one of the nurses that I got to know really well, they took her off of his like case because she knew us too well. And then so her best friend actually was his nurse for a while, and then they took her off. And so it was just kind of like all of them just loved him so much that.
And pretty soon the janitor was taking care of him because none of the nurses could anymore.
Yeah, so it was just kind of like okay, like I guess I'll just leave. Like that's it.
Ashley, this is a really weird question. But you know in Harry Potter, how there's the people who can see the weird skeleton horses?
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever thought to yourself, like, I can see the weird skeleton horses?
I have actually.
And if you don't know what I'm talking about, go read Harry Potter because there's just some weird skeleton horses that you can only see if you've seen somebody die.
I have actually thought about that.
Good.
Yeah, so and I did end up going to see a psychic like a couple months after, and there was a couple things that happened that I'm like, that had to have been him. And one of them was because he loved onions, like he would eat onions as an apple. Like an apple.
Weird.
Yeah, that's Dave. And so when we were in the grocery store, I was with my sister because she kind of like moved in for like a short period of time with me too. And like we were always together for like the first like month and a half. And so we were at the grocery store and I saw these cocktail onions and I was like, oh, I should get these for Dave to try. Like, never mind. Amy goes, do you want to get them for Dad? Dad would probably like them. And I was like, no, that's okay. Let's just go. The next day, the cocktail onions were in our refrigerator. And I looked at Amy and I brought them out. And I'm like, did you get these? And she's like, no, Dad got them. And he'd never tried them before, never, nothing. He was at the grocery store, happened to see them and was like, oh, I think I'll try these. And brought them home for the first time ever, like the next day. So I talked to the psychic about it and she was like, yeah, that was him. Like he blah, blah, blah. And she goes, there's something else that he's telling me that he's super proud of that, that you have to tell me about. And Dave was a huge Superman fan and I was a Batman fan. I was in my truck at work and I'm driving back to the office and it was a horrible day. And I was like, you have to give me something. I need something. And this car pulled out in front of me. And instead of the symbol on the back of the car, it was a Superman emblem. And I was like, wow, okay, thanks. Message received.
Thanks, Dave.
Yeah, she's like, so when she said something about a car emblem, I was like, oh, yeah, that makes sense.
So, Ashley, I have a question about Dave's daughter. Did you form a close relationship with her at all while you two were together?
Yes. So at our apartment, we had a outdoor pool and she loves swimming. So her and I would go swimming all the time and we got super close. With COVID and all of that, I didn't get to see her for probably about 3 months. Like it was just kind of no contact pretty much. After that, we did a drive-by parade for her for Easter and that kind of stuff. But other than that, it wasn't really anything. And she was able to come over and we opened up our circles a little bit more. Her and I we talk on the phone every day now. She tells me in detail about her day every day. And I am so, so, so thankful that I have her and just everything. So I started dating somebody. He is super awesome, very accepting of everything. And when I told her about it, it's so funny to me because because I was there the day she was born. So even though like I'd known her whole life, when Dave and I first started dating, she had, she was kind of like a no, like that's not a thing. Like, and once she got used to it and it was okay.
So in Minnesota, I know that laws are different in different states, but would you have any legal right to be in her life if her mom was not willing to let you be a part of her life?
No, yeah, she would have zero obligations to anything.
Yeah, we hear that a lot from people, that there's, relationships are complicated, and it sounds like it's going to be even more complicated soon for you.
I know. And it's so, Nick, my boyfriend now, he has a daughter who is a year younger than Katie. And so I told him, I'm like, will you just make sure that she knows like the whole situation before we
Yeah, that's a lot.
You're very fortunate that Katie is so awesome about that, and her mom too, because you've heard stories even just from our people on our podcast. It's like when they become the step parent and the dad dies, or the parent of the child, then you're alone again.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's extra trauma of like no access to the kid, and oh my gosh. So we're so glad for you that that's the situation, because it sounds like it's not common.
No, I am so, so thankful for not only Katie, but her mom as well. Like we talk all the time. We're like, Dave has to be laughing right now. Like, cool, you pick after I die to actually get along and be cool with each other.
So, Ashley, I wanted to circle back to something that you talked about a little bit earlier, and that was the way that we have to juggle, or we have to balance the idea of being open about the cause of our person's death, and also try to be respectful. And also, I think that a lot of people who have, I always call it a messier death, even though that's probably not a very good way of saying it, but a little bit more complicated, to not have that define the person. And I just want to say that, I see you in that struggle. That's, I think, a hard thing for a lot of people to kind of be able to be honest at the same time as saying, but this was not their defining characteristic. They were such a bigger person than just this part of them. And I don't see that a lot of people get defined by the way they died, unless it's kind of a messier, more complicated situation. And then all of a sudden that's the only thing that people remember. They only remember the suicide, or the, the drug addiction, or the whatever was kind of the less pretty part of their life. But, it doesn't happen so much unless it's something like that.
Yeah, it definitely is a struggle. It was a struggle. Like when people would ask how it was, and I still do this. I just say it was liver failure, which turned into kidney failure. Like, and if it weren't for the stomach ulcer that he had, he would still be here. It was literally a perfect storm of what happened that was his cause of death. So I just don't dwell on it, because it was such a small period of his life. It was honestly within the last year and a half that this happened. So it just, I don't like to and it's hard to, I don't know, it's hard to describe, because like I said, I'm not ashamed of it. I'm not, like it's a disease that happens. It's not anything different than any other disease. It's just it was just such a short period of his life that I want to focus on the larger period of his life where he was not sick and happy. Even with his daughter, because she knows everything. We did not hide anything from her. Even when we still talk about it, it's like oh, do you remember this? Yeah, that was before he was sick.
I love that you're taking that approach, because Anita has talked before about how widows are the memory keepers. And so that is up to you to perpetuate the good stories and not have Dave defined by this one little portion of his life that then led to the perfect storm of his death. So good job. I know that that's a tricky topic, and the people can make a lot of assumptions, and the reality is that you lost your person, and that's the biggest tragedy of all. So yeah, we're really glad that you're open about it and talking to us about it, and hope that it helps someone else that might be dealing with death by similar means.
I also think that the more we do talk about it, the less we stigmatize it. So, and I still understand there's like, you don't share that with everybody, and you're careful about how you present the information and all that thing. But I think the more and more it's out there, and it's like, this happens, and he was wonderful person, then hopefully we move away from that and we can see the whole life of, the person and what they meant to their family members, because it's not like you didn't love him any less, or, all of those things. So, So you're dating again. And did Dave say it was okay when you went to the psychic?
Yeah, so I went back to her. I've seen her twice now. And so the second time I went back, I had an order of which I wanted to ask her things. That was going to be the last thing that I asked her. And I sat down and I'm like, so I'm dating somebody and I just want to make sure it's okay. I feel like I'm cheating. I know I'm not. She started laughing and she goes, he says he's dead. Like, you're not cheating. And she goes, does he have a motorcycle? And I was like, yes. She goes, are you nervous about it? And I'm like, well, I had been on one once. I was on my dad's once in my life for like 10 minutes. So it's not like I was not nervous. And she started laughing and she goes, Dave is not nearly as nervous as you are. And he had told you to relax your legs, because I would get off, and I didn't tell anybody this, but I would get off the bike and my legs would be sore because I would be like clenching my legs so hard during the ride. And she goes, are you going on a longer ride with him that's coming up? And I'm like, yeah, we have a memorial ride, which is over like 100 miles. And she's like, yeah, he said you're not going to make it if you don't relax your legs.
I love that he gave you practical tips.
Yeah, thanks, Coach Dave.
Well, hopefully this will move into more comfortable motorcycle riding and open up a whole new world for you.
We have gone on quite a few, and now I love it and I want to get my own.
I'm just sorry that you never had really a marriage that was fun. It was like sickness from the
day.
I know. I still have in the storage unit, I still have all of our wedding gifts that were open. We opened them in the hospital, but like they weren't opened. Like the wrapping was opened, but the actual present wasn't.
Packages, boxes. Oh man.
So as you are listening to this, you may notice that we are all laughing and joking and talking about heavy things, but being a widow is of course super hard, and watching someone die is super hard. So Ashley, what would you say to people that might hear us in our conversation and they're like, well, Ashley's fine because she's laughing and she's talking so joyfully about these things? What would you say?
I would say that grief comes in all sorts of different ways, I guess. And that could be laughing and it could be crying. For a long time, I really, my great joy in life was to make people feel uncomfortable around me. And actually, I got to do it the other day because I'm on a bowling league. So I took a couple years off. And when I took those years off, it was right before I got married. And when I came back, it was right after I became a widow. So people were like, hey, like, how's married life? So this is my second year back. And a couple weeks ago, my boyfriend came with his daughter to come and see me. Well, I was texting him and somebody went, leave your boy at home, you're bowling. And I go, hey, it's still kind of new, leave me alone. And she goes, I thought you got married. And I go, yeah, I did. And then he died. So, and she just like sat there and stared at me. And she goes, I don't know if you're joking. And I'm like, no, I'm really not. Like, that's what happened. And she's like, okay.
As she runs away.
Yeah, pretty much. She's like, I'm just gonna go sit down now. So that's it. That's how another way that I dealt with it was, if I'm not gonna feel uncomfortable because like this is the facts of my life. And I did a lot of my crying in private. So
don't judge the widows if they laugh, because they also cry. Or if they don't cry, none your business.
It's been so fun to talk to you, Ashley, because you're a giggler. And so anything anybody says, she laughs and it makes you feel good about yourself. You're like, I am funny. Ashley's busting a gut over there and I didn't even say anything funny. So thanks, Ashley. It's been fun.
Yeah, it has been fun. Thank you, guys.
Last important question, my friend, and you know what it is. What is your favorite cheese?
So I feel like I have to say Swiss cheese because that is what Dave would eat. Like he would get Swiss cheese and just eat Swiss cheese.
But he liked to eat onions too, so we've established that something was broken in Dave's head.
Yeah, and is it your favorite cheese or just Dave's?
I still like I like it.
Okay.
Okay,
And that's like what I get on like sandwiches and stuff. But
cool. We will accept it if that's what you would like to present to us.
otherwise, I like all of them.
Yeah, all of them.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Ashley, and sharing your story and not being offended when we call you Ashley and can't get your name wrong.
It makes me
Right.
feel good.
And your name is Ashley. It's not even a complicated name. I don't even get it. Anyway, thank you for joining us. We hope everybody has found this episode to be helpful and you've enjoyed Ashley's story. Remember to come join us in the Widow Wives Club for more fun and shenanigans. It's a private Facebook group. Make sure you answer all of the questions or we're not letting you in. And if you want to keep the podcast going, then come join our Patreon. It's patreon.com/WWDN.
If you'd like to buy us a taco, it's buymeacoffee.com/widowwedonoww.
And until we talk to you next time, I'm Anita.
I'm Mel.
I'm Ashley.
And we're just two young widows and one widow who was doomed from the start. And we're all just trying to figure out, widow, we do now.
This is my favorite thing to discuss with you.
Tell me, what is it?
One of my favorite things. I do enjoy tacos and cheese and dogs. This is about how you cannot pay hundreds and hundreds of dollars for a phone plan, especially when you're a widow, your person is dead, you might have kids, you might need another option, and you just want your phone to work, you want unlimited texting and service, and you want it to be like $25 a month.
It blows my mind that they have plans that start at $15 a month. That is so cheap. And the cool thing is it uses other 5G networks, and so you don't have to pay extra for that, and you still get great service.
Yep, Anita and I have traveled all over, and I have used my phone. So I highly recommend it, and my mom's even on it. When my dad died, we put his phone down to the cheapest plan, which is $15 a month. And I think my mom's on the $20 a month plan, and it's so worth it. It's so much cheaper than what we were all paying before. So I highly recommend it if you're on a budget or not. Who cares? Ryan Reynolds is in charge of the company, and they send you free stickers with Ryan Reynolds temporary tattoos. It's kind of the best. So if somebody wants to sign up, what can they do, Anita?
Go to trymintmobile.com/WWDN. Seriously, you guys. Such a great idea. Save yourself some money.
And if you're worried about losing data or having any changes with your phone, not going to happen. They walk you through it. Everything's fine. It's the easiest process of all time. Again, that's
trymintmobile.com/WWDN.